coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere.
Welcome, my friends and fellow Americans, to our December show. We are proud to be able to talk to people who never had the honor of serving in the military, to know what life was like and the experiences that we had in the military. And to the veterans who are watching, we want to remind you that when you spent that time defending our country and the people in it, that is appreciated and you are respected. I would like to start this show with my favorite military Christmas story. This is a story about the United States that almost never was. The date is November 16th, 1776, Fort Washington, our last offensive position on New York. It has fallen. Our Continental troops have retreated into New Jersey and beaten and routed. They burned their tents, their food, their spare arms. The country had just declared the Declaration of Independence in July, declaring us free and independent. Now our army was being chased down the whole length of New Jersey in freezing storms and rain with no tents, no food, and the clothes only on their back, with the British Army aggressively pursuing them. Food was so scarce that the men were cooking their shoes, which were made of leather. One of the soldiers in this force, Thomas Paine, wrote a pamphlet telling the woes of these soldiers. And he said, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of his country. But he who stands is now deserves the love and thanks of men and women." It was winter, and the enlistments ended January 1st, 1777. These were beaten, raggedy, hungered soldiers. They retreated into Pennsylvania, crossed the Delaware River. Their commander, George Washington, knew that if he didn't have a victory, the revolution was doomed, and then his army would melt away. The British Army had gone into winter quarters, as was standard for the armies of those days. On one of these units was a regiment of Hessians, and they were quartered in Trenton, New Jersey. The Hessians were considered the best soldiers in the world at that time, but they were extremely savage and cruel. They had massacred colonial troops surrendered at Fort Washington. Washington needed a victory. He felt that attacking Trenton would be the best alternative. It was decided to cross the Delaware on Christmas night and catch the Hessians unaware. He had the troops gather all the boats and barges on the river, and that night loaded the men with American soldiers. He estimated that they would be over by 3 o'clock in the morning. The men rowing the boats were Gloucester fishermen and a company of Marines. They were done around 3 a.m. There were snowstorms and ice floes which harried their progress. The weather was freezing when they landed, and the roads were frozen. It was said that you could mark the march by the bloody path they had marched. Most had no shoes, and their feet were wrapped in rags or blankets. Yet they still marched 10 miles in a blizzard. Two soldiers fell out and froze to death. The battle almost was a disaster for the Americans. A loyalist farmer had given a letter to the colonel in charge of the Hessians. Of course, the colonel was playing cards that night and stuck it in his pocket. The Americans' army fell on those drowsy Hessians and defeated them. The only 2 deaths were the 2 who had froze. They then went back across the Delaware River. On January 1st morning, their enlistments were up. The men could go home, their duty done. Washington called them out, addressed them, and asked them to re-enlist. He told them if they did not, there would be no army. Without an army, there would be no revolution. Without a revolution, there would be no new country. He ended his talk and asked them to please step forward. There was silence. Nobody moved. Nobody said anything. All of a sudden, one man stepped forward, then another, and then the army moved forward. The men and women who served and serve our country now and since, they are the same as those soldiers in the Revolutionary War. Merry Christmas, America. My guest today, Malcom Ward, was born in Kankakee and moved to Houston, Texas. He enlisted in the Army in 2013. He served and re-enlisted in 2019. Malcom deployed to Korea and achieved the rank of corporal, and he was awarded the Korean Defense Ribbon. He left the service in 2023. He attended Northern Illinois University and Moraine Valley College. He's employed in the food service industry currently at Peppo's Restaurant in Palos Hills, Illinois. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
What made you decide to go in the Army?
My family's been in the military for generations. Since I was younger, I always got to see awards or pictures hanging up in my family's homes of my uncles, my cousins, and I knew when I was younger that it was going to be my turn when I got older, and I wanted to do that. So when I got of age, I told my mom that I was going to serve, and she accepted, so I knew it was my turn.
When you got into the induction center, what was it like?
When I actually got into the process of inducting, I was nervous. I was very nervous. I knew what it came with. I knew I was going to carry my family's name and make them proud. I was very nervous. I didn't know what I was signing up for really because I was younger, but I knew that I was going to be great at it and I was going to give it my all. And once I did swear in, I felt like I was a part of something bigger than myself, and it was a great feeling.
Yes. Where'd you go to basic training?
So I went to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the infantry. It was great. It was scary at first. I believe we rolled into Fort Benning. It was late at night, but it was an amazing feeling to actually see the statues rolling in and to be surrounded by other young men that were ready to start the same journey with me, you know. And we were all new to this, and Fort Benning was the perfect way to start.
What was the training like? What do you remember the most about basic?
Definitely a lot of ruck marches, a lot of being at the ranges, but really what training was it was my time to become a man. It was the opportunity to learn from being a high schooler to what it was to be an individual, joining something bigger than myself, to be part of a team, to step into that role of one day leading soldiers and fulfilling my role as what I was a leader. It was a lot. It was a lot to step away from this young child in civilian life into now holding the role of a soldier, holding the role of someone that other people are going to look to for help, looking to for your brothership or your brother, you know, being a brother. It was basic training really molded me.
What was it like when the NCO stepped in front of you, right in front of your face, that far apart, and started questioning you?
The first time that my drill sergeants really checked me and made me realize that I needed to be molded, it was a surreal feeling. I felt like in that time I was young, I was an athlete, I was out of high school. I felt like I was ready to take on the world, and being checked and saying, hey, look, I'm doing this to make you better, I didn't understand it. And then after the years of service, I was most appreciative to my drill sergeants of how they did it and how they...
You remember his name?
I had Drill Sergeant Eric. I only remember Drill Sergeant Eric because he was the closest one to me. He was the youngest drill sergeant I had, and I saw him progress and become a senior drill sergeant literally the next time I came through. So it was great to see someone so young be so successful in the military so
It's
quickly.
really something to go from when you start there to the end,
Yes.
and how much you develop,
Mm-hmm.
and how much they want you to think for yourself.
Absolutely.
What was your MOS?
My first MOS was 11 Bravo Infantry. My second MOS was 25 Hotel Now, which is a signaleer. Yeah, so I started off as a 11 Bravo Infantry, and once I came in the second time in 2019, after my first contract, I switched over to Signal because I loved being in the field, but I wanted to build off of that and figure out what else I could do with that.
What was infantry training like?
Infantry training is very direct and disciplined, very to the point with you have to know your job to the T because now lives are at stake. There's no, yes, we have a good time, but when it's time to train, it's time to train, you know, and I think that was something I needed at a younger age. And then learning military tactics, learning how to rely on the person next to you, understanding I need to know your role just as much as I know my own role. Me personally, I believe starting as infantry is the best basis for anybody because it gets you in that mindset of this is serious, I need to be very serious about this, and then transitioning into another position or another MOS is, I feel like that's very necessary.
Where did you take your AIT?
So my first AIT was at Fort Benning. I went through OSIT all the way
Okay.
through. And then my second time that I came through, I was at Fort Gordon.
Augusta.
Yeah, Augusta, Georgia.
I know it well. What'd you learn at the AIT for the signal?
So I learned different pieces of signal equipment, especially my second time coming through. I obviously already knew the basics of military etiquette and everything, but this time I wanted to refine my skills and really focus and hone in on how to be a better soldier my second time through, and now stepping into a leadership role even more. I was able to learn how to build wires, how to really deploy different systems, different algorithms and things like that. I think signal training was amazing for me. So,
Did you deploy right out of AIT?
yeah, right out of AIT is when I went straight to Korea.
How'd you get to Georgia, from Georgia to where you were?
So I believe right as we were leaving Georgia, I remember they woke us up early. Everybody that was catching the flight had to be up earlier. And then we caught a bus, I believe, to Virginia, because then we all sat on the airmac and then, or tarmac, and then we flew from there to Alaska, and Alaska to Korea.
I remember that flight. How was your? How did you deploy to Korea? What did you think of when you got there?
It was a new experience. Being in Korea, the first time stepping off and actually into country, it was different. I had never been in a country where there was pretty much no English, you know. It was a new experience, and it really was surreal of how far I was away from my family, how far everybody I cared about was in pretty much a different world than me. But it was a great feeling because I knew that it was a part of my journey. And
With being part of Signal, did you travel all over the country?
yes, I was all over Korea plenty of times with missions. I believe I've been to the very top of the peninsula, all the way to the very
Oh, you're
south.
down to Busan.
Yeah,
huh?
all the way to Busan, yeah.
You served on the DMC.
Yes.
What was that like?
It made me miss home. It made me realize that sometimes we do take America for granted. We take our peace, we take our home for granted, because until you step into somebody else's neighborhood or their country, you don't realize that they see barbed wire, they see where they're not supposed to go, they see that their neighbors to the north are not really their neighbors sometimes, you know. It makes you really be thankful for what you have at home. And plenty of times when I was on missions and may not have talked to my friends or family for a long time, I realized that, yes, I'm thankful for being able to serve and protect what we have here. So,
Did you get to Seoul?
Yeah, I saw Seoul. It was beautiful.
When I got there, it was still part of, partially demolished from the Korean War. So,
Okay.
but I think it's a lot different now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very different. It's very built up and very, very beautiful now. Very beautiful city.
How'd you like the people there?
I was a part of, sometimes I saw protests where they didn't want us there. And they were very adamant about being clear, hey, we don't want you in our country. And then there's certain people that did. Some certain people made it feel like home. When we would go and travel, I would do different things with my team of, for holidays, they'd take us and be able to go like horseback riding or be able to just experience the country, you know, not really worrying about, like, just have some time to enjoy each other. And in those moments, I was like, okay, this country is beautiful, because there is a lot of hiking locations, a lot of nature in Korea, and it's absolutely beautiful.
How was it being over there, thinking about home and the family, especially at the holidays?
For the holidays, it was definitely a tough time for me. While I was in Korea and unable to take leave, my grandfather passed away. He was the closest male to me. He was like my father figure. And finding out he passed away while I was in Korea was very difficult. It made it hard to be away. And I promised him when I left that I'd come back and I'd tell him all about it. But I did tell him, it just wasn't the same way.
I understand. Tell us about some of the guys you knew over there.
Yeah. So one of my best friends over there was Sergeant Green. I got to meet him during AIT, and we both wanted to go to Korea. So when we were signing papers, we were like, hey, let's just go to Korea and see if we get it. And we both got it, and I got to see him progress and grow in the military. It was his first time around, and he asked me, what is it like? And I really got to see him develop as a man and as a soldier, and it was a great experience. We both did our time, and I feel like it was great bonding for our friendship, being able to go through those missions, go through what we did while we were over there, and be able to come home and say, hey, look, man, like, do you remember those times? So
one of the things that I remember, and I'm sure you do, is how much you bonded.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the people who were with you. Mm-hmm. You became almost a family.
Absolutely.
Where'd you muster out at?
So I believe that was, like I said, we were leaving out of Virginia, but I was also stationed at Camp Humphreys most of the time. So
Camp Humphreys.
Camp Humphreys, yeah.
I remember that well.
Yeah, it was, Camp Humphreys is definitely different. I saw pictures, and they show you what it originally looked like, and it was literally a small camp. Now it's massive. Camp Humphreys has grown, and it's beautiful out there. Definitely a staple, I feel like, of Korea. So,
how'd you like the weather?
The blizzards and tsunamis. When people said it would tsunami and the weather was different, I expected, okay, it would rain a lot, or it might get cold, but I never expected to see rain come sideways. Yeah, and there was a lot of flooded PT. So.
Why did you leave the service?
So my first time through the military, I met my mentor, Robert Poplowski, who owns Peppo's. When I was in the service, when I was in Korea, I stayed in contact with him. I always told him what was going on, just so I could have a piece of home with me and somebody that, when things got hard, I could talk to, you know. When I was reaching the end of this contract, he reached out to me and said, hey, I have an opportunity for you if you're ready for it. And I always looked up to him since I've met him. I met him in, I believe, 2016, 2017. I always looked up to him. He's a very distinguished man, knows what he wants out of life. And when the opportunity arose, I said, yes, I want to take it, because I trust his leadership. I trust what he's doing and what he's trying to achieve with Peppo's. And I felt like it was my time to step away from the military. It just, not that it felt different, but everybody that I served with originally was getting out or had already gotten out. And I felt like it was my time to step into whatever life held next.
Yeah, Bob was on this show.
Yeah.
You're in the food service industry. What's that like?
So, like I said, with Rob, he keeps it the same military structure, the same ideal of we get after it when we have to. We do what is necessary, but it's a family aspect. The food industry's tough sometimes. There's late days, early mornings, but when you're doing it with the people you love and you care about, and you all have the same common goal, there's nothing that can beat that. I love the food industry. I've always loved cooking. I've always loved being in the kitchen, and now I'm doing it with friends and family. There's no other job I'd rather do. And being able to see Peppo's grow into what it will be, I love being a part of that, as well as being able to do it with somebody I look up to so much and seeing him achieve his legacy. So, yeah, I love the food industry.
The last question I always ask all my vets is, how do you feel about being a vet?
This is, it feels, I feel like sometimes I haven't done enough to be considered a vet, but I know that I am that. It reminds me that every day when people say, oh, thank you for your service, or thank you for what you did, it's a part of the legacy of others, you know, part of that brotherhood, a part of one of the greatest things that you can do is that selfless service, being able to go to another country and saying, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that home is secure, you know, and follow that legacy of others that have done it before you.
Very good, very good. I want to thank you for being on my show.
Absolutely.
I want to present you with this coin.
Thank you so much.
And this pin, and welcome back.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
I want to read one of the letters that I received from recipients of our care packages. Hey Jim, I want to say thank you so much for the care package. I was very fortunate to receive this amazing box full of goodies. My name is Helmer Garcia Parmo. I am 22 years old. The chaplain was generous to give me a care package because I told him I needed a morale booster and something to cheer me up. Sure enough, I received this amazing box. You're one of a kind, Jim. Not many people go out of their way to do things like this. We need people to spread kindness, especially in times like these. You made my whole week. God bless you and your family. I hope your people are safe during these tough times. I appreciate you a lot and this generous package. Thank you again, Jim. Helmer Garcia. The holidays are here, Christmas and all the other holidays. Please think about our troops, men and women, all over the world. And when you celebrate, please think about them. Being away from home is always lonely, especially at the holidays. I remember as much as many of our vets do. One final thing I'd like to talk about. We vets have heard those 5 words, thank you for your service. My response has always been, it was an honor. But I'm reading a book about a Medal of Honor winner, Kyle Carpenter, who was wounded in Afghanistan. His response was, you were worth it. You were worth us serving and going through difficulties and problems in military life. You were worth the sufferings and the difficulties because of that service after we got out. We vets, when we hear those 5 words, should understand they mean that they respect us and appreciate our service. My response from now on is going to be, you were worth it. Thank you for watching my show this month on PHTV4. I look forward to seeing you next year. Have a happy and Merry Christmas and happy holidays. Honor and respect.